You remember how it was when the end came in Europe, and then again on VJ Day. You remember how it was when the boys began coming home in 45. It was that way, too, in 1918, and in 1898, and 1865. Parades, cheers, backslapping. Nothing's too good for our boys. Thanks, fellas, for a tough job well done. Hail the conquering hero.
The journey home from war used to take a few weeks or months. Now it's a few days. But really coming home can take a lifetime. I saw this in my own dad, who served in Vietnam. I wondered what coming home was like for other vets.
Just talking about this with a friend, you know, that first month just flew because everything was so exciting and everything was so new, and you were just on this euphoric high. And then that month leaves, and you know, people are like, "Oh yeah, you're back. Nice to see you."
And then when I came home, it was a totally different world. It wasn't what I left from, because everybody was different. They didn't want to hear what I had to say, because when I started talking about what I had just come from, they didn't care. They didn't seem to have an interest in it.
I remember asking him some questions now and then, but the answers weren't anything much or intriguing or anything like that. So I guess we sort of assumed that nothing much happened to him there, which of course was totally wrong, because we had no clue what had happened to him there.
After my father's death, I wanted to talk to other veterans and families, to learn what they did to cope and heal.
Oh, for many years, whatever woman I happened to be living with would always be sure to wake me up with a broom, rather than come up to shake me awake, because I would frequently come out of there, you know, out of that sleep and ready to grab somebody or something.
I didn't think nothing of it, that I answered the door. I heard what I thought was gunfire, and I go to my parents' front door with my loaded .357 and, you know, open the door. I'm standing there in my t-shirt and underwear, and it's a roofer.
This is my Eagle staff. It's given to me by a guy from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. The staff itself was made by my son, and these are all tail feathers of the bald eagle. Ashi Nisle. This is Ashi Nisle. 13 feathers. This is a little Vietnam veteran colors.
And who'd you give 5 of the feathers to?
To 5 Indians from this reservation who are in Iraq. I gave one to a young Marine that came back from Iraq to help with his PTSD that he's going through now.
Like for many other vets, my dad's first request for post-traumatic stress disorder status was declined. That was back in 1994. The VA labeled him as bipolar back in 1976, mostly because they weren't even diagnosing PTSD until 4 years later in 1980. Even with his treatment, he continued to have anxiety and nightmares. Why do you feel like it doesn't matter what he was diagnosed as?
Part of me is like, I don't think it matters, because it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. He was the way he was for any number of reasons, and just living his existence was just awful.
Vienreiz pastāstīji, kā tu atceries, kāpēc viņš nomira?
Cigarete.
It's been 3 years since my dad died. Yet it is this year that his case for PTSD is being re-reviewed by a government hearing.
So are you nervous about this?
Yeah, it's like it took him years to even apply, and then he was denied, and then he passed away, and this is kind of like the last thing they do.
I've always tried to decipher who my dad was before the war. People talked about him as if that person had died. People would say that they used to be good friends. When he did die, everyone had a lot to say, even if they hadn't talked to him in years. One thing I heard over and over after his funeral was, I have an uncle who was in Vietnam, but we never really see him anymore. To some people, my dad was that kind of uncle.
What do you do when you've gone for the third time? And then you lose half your squad. And then you come home. Where do you put all that?
A lot of people ask me why I wear these flags. It's because of the burden upon my back. The uncommon valor that paid for this land wasn't fought for by just the common man. I wear the flag for all of those who died, for the homeless vet who's trying to survive. I wear it for the reasons that keep our country free, and for God's grace, peace, and liberty. The stars are full